just from a nominal perspective, it is completely illogical to say that we're going to have diminishing returns. We're going from 35 trillion in national debt to 350 trillion to 3.5 quadrillion to 35 quadrillion to 350 quadrillion to 3.5 quintillion to 35 quintillion. Number two, are we going to see diminishing returns nominally? No, I don't think so. And I think in a long time horizon, we're going to see exponentially increasing returns.
A lot of people think, when's Bitcoin going to become stable?
Respectfully, I think that the people that think Bitcoin is going to have perpetually diminishing returns in all forms either are ignorant or short-sighted or have a low time horizon. The intellectually cheap thing to say is that, it makes logical sense to me that Bitcoin starts out volatile and it gets less volatile as it gets bigger. And in some aspects they're right. My disagreement is when they say it in all aspects. To me, there are three different ways to look at it. The first question is,
a lot of people think, when's Bitcoin going to become stable? Bitcoin's going to flatten out and it's going to actually become stable one day at 50 million, or let's say if you're a little bit more bearish, more like $5 million a coin. Now, I disagree with that, and it's because of the point you mentioned. Technology is going to continue to get better and better and better. And unless you're a pessimist on civilization's technological ability, you should buy this beautiful square that's around us today.
Right.
Maybe we should talk a little bit more about, will Bitcoin flatten off in the future or become a little bit more stable? And, let's talk a little bit more about that.
Respectfully, I think that the people that think Bitcoin is going to have perpetually diminishing returns in all forms either are ignorant or short-sighted or have a low time horizon. I think it's the intellectually cheap thing to say is that, it makes logical sense to me that Bitcoin starts out volatile and it gets less volatile as it gets bigger. And in some aspects they're right. My disagreement is when they say it in all aspects. To me, there are three different ways to look at it. The first question is, okay, you're saying Bitcoin is going to become less volatile in the future. Are you talking about in nominal terms? Are you talking about in real terms? Or are you talking about in terms of global adoption? To me, those are three very different questions, and they have three different answers. The first one I'll address is global adoption. Obviously, it is going to get increasingly diminishing returns on global adoption, right? Going from 0.0001% global adoption to 0.01% adoption is a huge, massive change, both in percentage and in terms of total network value, right? Going from 0.1 adoption to 4% adoption is also a massive move, maybe not quite as large. Going from 4% to 8% is also a large move, but not nearly as large, right? So obviously, the greater percentage of the world economy that's adopting Bitcoin and exiting other inferior forms of monetary storage, obviously that gets diminishing returns over time, right? That aspect obviously does, because you can't go over above 100% of all the humans that are using Bitcoin, right? The other two of those three, I do not believe are ever going to have diminishing returns. To address the nominal one, which is perhaps the more obvious one, is that we are printing more political currency forever. And there are many people that would have difficulty saying that Bitcoin's price is going up exponentially forever. But in nominal terms, I do believe it's going up exponentially forever, because there is no limit to how many political currency units we will create. Here in the Czech Republic, right, it does not matter who's in charge. All that matters is that someone is in charge, and there is an incentive for them to print more currency units. There's an incentive for them to create more numbers to extract wealth from others and take wealth from people, right? So there is no limit, right? And a lot of people say, that's fear-mongering. That's fear porn. You're being a pessimist. You hate humanity. You're rooting for hyperinflation. You're rooting for World War III. $1 million Bitcoin be World War III. Blah, blah, blah. All these, again, respectfully, naive or perhaps intentionally ignorant perspectives are explicitly ignoring the fact that in the United States of America, the strongest country in the world, the strongest country in all of human history, with the least bad political currency, the US dollar, ever in history, even in our country, America, the national debt of the United States has increased by a factor of 800,000x. Not the previous currency we had before the dollar that hyperinflated. No, not that. The current dollar. We have had our national debt increase by a factor of 800,000-fold, right? The entire Louisiana Purchase, which is basically the middle third of America, was mere tens of millions of dollars, right? Alaska was mere millions of dollars, right? And you have to ask yourself, wait, why are those prices going up? It's because we have increased the political currency units forever. Granted, it took about 250 years to get that 800,000x, But if we're increasing currency about 3 times faster now than we were 200 years ago, then all of a sudden you begin to realize, wait a second, another 500,000x, 800,000x, or even 1,000,000x from here in national debt is probably not going to take 250 years. Maybe it takes 200 or 150, or I would argue less than 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, people really have to think about that. Forget value appreciation for Bitcoin. This kind of gets to the whole less in common with the future than the past idea, right? Like, thousands of years ago, this city square had, 100 times less people, food that was not nearly as good, buildings that were not nearly as beautiful, and frankly, the diversity of both thought and ethnicity here is massive, right? I mean, 1,000 years ago, most people here probably never left their local villages or towns, or maybe they went to a neighboring country, but there are people from all around the planet here, right? So that's part of the whole time traveling thing, right? It's that not just is the stuff different, but the people are different and they get to enjoy their time here, right? That's kind of what I was saying before about time is your wealth, not stuff, right? So anyway, in regards to the nominal devaluation of the dollar, my point is that if in 250 years, when the majority of that time we were on a gold standard, we still increased our national debt in the United States from under $50 million nominal to $35 trillion. Okay, we are literally adding more unfunded liabilities to the United States of America today every few seconds than the entirety of our national debt 250 years ago. And so you can forget value appreciation for real estate stocks, Bitcoin, and everything else in the world. Just from a nominal perspective, it is completely illogical to say that we're going to have diminishing returns. We're going from 35 trillion in national debt to 350 trillion to 3.5 quadrillion to 35 quadrillion to 350 quadrillion to 3.5 quintillion to 35 quintillion. I mean, and that might sound like hyperbole to people. That might sound like hyperinflation. But again, if you were to go back to George Washington and say, hey, George boy, the national debt of the United States is going to increase by a factor of 100,000. Oh, and then another 8x from there. He would assume hyperinflation, and yet we have not had hyperinflation in the United States. So you can forget the quote-unquote fear porn or the quote-unquote fear-mongering of hyperinflation in the United States just by going from history alone and by going from the facts of where we are. It is illogical to say that we are going to have diminishing returns in terms of a currency that is designed to never have diminishing returns. That's the second point. The third point is that of technological progress. And this is the one that matters the most, right?
Now, speaking of Bitcoin custody, I wanted to quickly interrupt this interview to remind you guys, please get your Bitcoin off an exchange. If you are looking for a hardware wallet in the market, look for a Bitcoin only one. If you did want a really simple and easy to use hardware wallet to put your Bitcoin on, you can use a Bitbox, and you can even get 5% off a Bitbox with a promo code Luke5. But don't stop there. Most people make the pivotal mistake of getting a hardware wallet, writing down their Bitcoin private seed phrase onto a piece of paper, but they stop there. They leave their 12 or their 24 words on paper, but we all know paper does not survive the test of time, okay? If there's a flood, if there's a fire, guess what happens to your Bitcoin wallet and your Bitcoin backup phrase on that piece of paper? Adios, it's gone, okay? You don't have your Bitcoin anymore. This is why we're really thrilled to be partnering up with Stampseed. What you should be doing after you buy your hardware wallet is actually stamping your Bitcoin private seed phrase onto titanium, okay? Titanium survives floods, it survives fires, it survives everything. It is your essential partner to make sure your generational wealth does actually survive for generations. So you guys can also get 15% off absolutely anything you want to buy at Stampseed with the promo code Luke15. So with all of that said, let's get back into this interview.
The first one was adoption. Yes, we're going to have diminishing returns. The second point was nominal price appreciation. Yes, we're going to have exponentially increasing returns. And we have Dogecoin over here.
The girlfriend loves those little cute dogs.
Yes, we have the Dogecoin dog literally right over here. I can't make this up.
Look at his little legs. They're tiny little things.
Oh man, that's adorable. I mean, I'm still not buying it, but still,
Yeah,
that's a pretty good argument. But the third point is the most important one, and that is the innovation question, right?
Yeah.
Technology is increasing at a faster and faster rate. This is both, in my opinion, good and bad. This has both the optimistic side and the pessimistic side. The optimistic side is that life is getting better and better, right? My life from here over the next 30, 40, 50 years is going to have more economic progress faster than my grandparents had, right? And my grandparents, they had more technological progress in their life than people, thousands of years ago, right? Technology is changing faster and faster within our own lives, right? Now, there are downsides to this, right? One downside is that we have multiple career cycles within a single lifetime, right? People would go 10 generations farming in the exact same way possible. Then there would be some slight change to a farming method, and they would go another 8 generations without changing their farming methods, right? Then, let's say in the Industrial Revolution era, people had one major career change in a lifetime, right? You go from being a farmer to maybe working in a factory, right? And now we're at the point where technology is so fast that
It's okay. We're very sorry. Sorry.
Technology is so fast that over the next 30, 40, 50 years, I literally don't know what to encourage people what career to go into, because most careers today are not going to be around in 30, 40, 50 years, right? I mean, obviously we both have experience in making movies and videos, right? I remember when I started making films when I was 6 years old, that the whole debate was around digital versus film. That's not a debate anymore. We have progressed from the film versus digital debate to the social media versus the theatrical release, right? The CGI debate, right? Now we're at the point where at the very, very beginnings of the whole AI generated filmmaking movement and debate, right? And that's going to be this whole new thing, right? And people will resist it for a while, but the point I'm making is that this is the third aspect to Bitcoin's value appreciation. What, you're trying to get a beer or something?
Yeah, something like that. I thought I'd get a beer.
Yeah, let's
I want a
some
weapon.
water.
I want a weapon nice and close. That's what I want.
All right.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, my point is that technology is objectively getting faster. And those prosperity gains are objectively being created faster. And if Bitcoin is the tokenization of, let's say, all of that productivity, then the actual purchasing power of that productivity is going to accrue to Bitcoin, right? So if I can give a specific example, and Luke, feel free to use this for your clickbait as much as possible, right? And I talk about clickbait and the nominal of Bitcoin because people need to have the emotional hook in order to understand truly what I think you and I are saying. You all right?
100%.
Okay. So one aspect of looking at this, I would argue, is that of space travel, right? Which right now sounds absurd, and frankly, it is absurd, right? It's more sci-fi than anything, right? Because sci-fi, emphasis on fi, right? It's fiction, right? Neither you and I have any chance of ever going to, let's say, Mars, right? It's currently estimated that the approximate cost for me to throw you in a rocket here from Prague and launch you to the red planet, to where you're going to go on a one-way trip, by the way, you're going to be dead in a matter of weeks because you'll run out of supplies, it's going to be about $10 billion. Now, I don't have $10 billion, but that's approximately what it would take to create the rocket to then send you to Mars, right? And and then you're going to die when you're there, right? So that's a big problem if you want to go to Mars, right? It's literally impossible for you to do that and live to tell the tale. So at the same time, we have new innovations, right? We have the Artemis program of NASA. We have the Starship program of SpaceX and therefore Elon Musk, right? We have Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos. We have this competition between the private and public sector and between these different billionaires, all trying to innovate to find these ways to get to Mars, right? And this is a question aside from the fact that people personally want to do it or not. The fact remains that probably in the next 20, 30, 50 years, someone's going to figure it out, right? We've seen massive leaps, especially with Starship in the last, half a decade, not even that. We're seeing these massive incremental improvements. And if in the future that the predictions of all of these groups are right, and approximately the ticket for a round trip is about the cost of a house, where you actually live to tell the tale, by the way, how do you price that in? Right? Do you use dollars to price in things that we inherently can't price in? Do you use global adoption to price in things? No, neither of those works. You have to think in terms of absolute purchasing power, right? And so if there are roughly approximately 100 houses on the planet per Bitcoin, which is its own side note of anything, right? One Bitcoin's basically the value of 100 houses in a long enough time horizon in the future. And if we assume that one of these tickets to Mars, theoretically, is about the cost of one house, what I'm trying to say is that means that 100 round trips to Mars, which you inherently can't do today without living to survive the tale, is one Bitcoin, right? For one salary, right? And so this gets back to the time traveling thing, right? It's like, I cannot actually go to Mars today. I cannot actually experience that technological innovation. But what I can do...
So if you enjoyed those short and sharp little highlights clips of my discussion with Luke Broyles, you're going to absolutely love the full interview, which was released literally minutes ago. I'm going to put a link to that video up on screen right about there. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. I'll see you guys in the next video.